I stood at the entrance of my parents' backyard, watching champagne glasses clink and guests celebrate my brother's graduation. My mother's face went pale the moment she spotted me. She rushed over, her voice sharp and panicked. "Sarah, leave now. You're going to embarrass us in front of everyone." My father blocked my path, his jaw tight. "You weren't invited. Our guests don't need to see you here." I smiled calmly and said, "Oh, I think they'll want to see me. Because I made everything happening here possible, their world comes crashing down as they are about to come to realization. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and let me know where you're listening from in the comments. My name is Sarah Mitchell, and for most of my life, I was just the overlooked daughter. Not literally, of course, but in every way that mattered to my family, I might as well have been a ghost. I was 19, working 2 jobs while juggling a full course load at State University. Every spare moment went toward my studies or earning money to supplement what I thought was my college fund. It was a Tuesday evening when my world fell apart. I came home exhausted from my shift at the campus library, but the moment I walked through the front door, I knew something was different. My brother Marcus was turning 18, and my parents were throwing him a celebration. I walked outside and saw it. A brand new BMW sat in our driveway, gleaming under the porch lights. Midnight blue with leather seats that probably cost more than my entire semester's tuition. Marcus stood beside it with the biggest grin on his face, while my parents took endless photos. I waited until later that evening to approach my father in his study. My hands were shaking as I asked about the tuition payment for next semester. The payment was due in 2 weeks. My father barely looked up from his newspaper. "We used that money for Marcus's car." The words hit me like a punch to the stomach. "What?" "That was my college fund. 4 years of savings." My mother appeared in the doorway, her arms crossed defensively. "Marcus deserves to enjoy his youth. He's been under so much pressure with college applications." "You're smart," my father said, finally looking at me. "You can take out student loans. Marcus needs to make the right impression at college. A reliable car is important for networking." My voice cracked. "I'm at college right now. I'm working 2 jobs while taking a full course load." My mother waved her hand dismissively. "Don't be so dramatic, Sarah. Student loans are completely normal. Besides, you're studying science. Marcus is pre-law. His future matters more for the family name." His future matters more. Those words echoed in my head, not "both your futures matter," just a casual statement that my brother's dreams were worth $40,000 and mine were worth student debt. I walked upstairs in a daze, past Marcus's bedroom where he was laughing with his friends about his sick new ride. I passed the hallway lined with family photos, Marcus's soccer trophies, Marcus's debate team awards. I had to search to find myself in any of them, always tucked in the background, always out of focus, and suddenly, it all made sense. The years of "Marcus needs quiet to study, do your homework in the garage," the countless times they missed my science fairs because Marcus had a soccer game. Every achievement I earned was met with a distracted, "That's nice, dear," while Marcus got a celebration dinner for making the honor roll. That night, I packed a single duffel bag. I took only what was mine: my laptop, my clothes, my research notebooks. At 2 a.m, I slipped out the front door without leaving a note. No goodbye, no explanation. I was done being the overlooked daughter. My parents discovered me gone the next morning. Months later, I heard my mother had simply said, "She'll be back when she needs something." My father's response was worse. "Good riddance. Maybe now she'll learn some gratitude." But I wasn't coming back. Not until I could return on my own terms, successful beyond their wildest imagination. I spent the first 3 nights sleeping in my beat-up Honda. I'd shower at the gym before it opened, change in bathroom stalls, and show up to class like everything was fine. Nobody knew. I was good at being invisible, remember? On the 4th morning, Professor Mark found me in the lab at 6 a.m. I'd been there all night. He took one look at the duffel bag in the corner, the exhaustion on my face, and he just knew. He didn't ask invasive questions. He simply said, "I have a graduate research assistant position opening up, full tuition waiver, monthly stipend, and housing included." Then he paused. "I've been watching your work, Sarah. You're brilliant. Let me help you fight for your future." I broke down right there in the lab. When I finally composed myself, I made a vow. I would never be invisible again. I would make them see what they threw away. The first year was brutal. I worked 80-hour weeks, sometimes more. While other students went home for holidays, I stayed in the lab. I blocked my parents' numbers and created a complete blackout. My research project became my obsession. I was developing a revolutionary cancer detection methodology using artificial intelligence and biomarkers. The idea had come to me during one of those sleepless nights in my car, thinking about how invisible diseases could be, just like invisible children in families. Then it happened. Late one night, nearly a year after I'd left home, my algorithm showed something extraordinary: 95% accuracy in early-stage cancer detection. I ran the numbers again and again, convinced I'd made an error. But the data didn't lie. Professor Mark reviewed my findings and his hands actually shook. "Sarah, do you understand what you've done? This could save millions of lives." I was 20 years old, and I'd just solved a problem that had stumped researchers for decades. The university fast-tracked me into their PhD program. Local news picked up the story. I found out later that my parents saw the coverage. My father's only comment? "She's probably exaggerating. You know how she always needed attention." But I didn't have time to dwell on their opinions. Pharmaceutical companies started calling. At a national conference, an executive named Dr. Patricia Reynolds approached me. "Your work could revolutionize oncology. We want to fund your research." I was 21, negotiating like a CEO. I secured a $500,000 preliminary grant with full control of my research, my name on all patents, and a partnership with the university. Suddenly, I wasn't just a grad student anymore. I was managing a team of researchers, most of them twice my age. I completed my PhD coursework in record time. My only real friend during this time was Maya, a fellow researcher. One night, she found me in the lab at midnight and asked, "Do you ever sleep? Do you ever think about your family?" I didn't look up from my microscope. I don't have a family, I have work. At 22, I defended my dissertation and became Dr. Sarah Mitchell, the youngest PhD in state history. My research had proven commercially viable, and the pharmaceutical partnership expanded to a $2 million research grant. The university decided to name their new science building after my contribution. I was featured in Scientific American, then Forbes's 30 Under 30 list. I created a foundation called the Rising Phoenix for students from unsupportive families. Every scholarship recipient had been told by their parents that they weren't worth investing in. But I kept one secret habit. Late at night, I'd check Marcus's public social media. I watched his college journey unfold. Parties, mediocre grades, a comfortable internship at our father's law firm handed to him without effort. My parents beamed in every photo. There was never any mention of me. I'd been completely erased. Then I noticed something interesting. Marcus was graduating this spring from State University, the same university that had just named a building after me. My brother had no idea that his embarrassing failure of a sister was campus royalty. When the official faculty invitation to Marcus's graduation ceremony arrived, I stared at it for a long time. Then I saw the social media posts. My parents were planning a massive graduation party. Maya found me looking at the invitation. "You're not actually thinking of going, are you?" I smiled, and it felt cold even to me. I've been invisible long enough. It's time to be seen. The graduation ceremony was elegant and boring. I sat in the faculty section watching hundreds of graduates cross the stage. When Marcus's name was called, I watched my parents stand up crying with pride. Dean Morrison gave a speech about the university's future, gesturing toward the new science building visible through the auditorium windows. A slide appeared showing the Mitchell Science Building. My parents smiled, probably thinking it was a nice coincidence. Marcus looked bored. None of them had any idea. I slipped out before the ceremony ended and drove to my parents' house. I parked down the street watching guests arrive for the party. My phone buzzed. "Maya, last chance to back out." I texted back, "I'm done backing out." I walked up the driveway, past Marcus's BMW that still looked brand new, and into the backyard. The party was in full swing. My mother saw me first. The color drained from her face so fast I thought she might faint. My father rushed over, his expression a mixture of shock and anger. "Sarah, what are you doing here?" "Hello, Mom? Dad?" I kept my voice calm and steady. "Congratulations on Marcus's graduation." My mother's voice came out in a panicked whisper. "You can't be here, please just leave." "You weren't invited," my father added. "This is Marcus's day. You'll embarrass us in front of our guests." That's when Dean Morrison walked into the backyard. He spotted me immediately, and his entire face lit up. He crossed the party, walking right past my confused parents, and extended his hand warmly. "Dr. Mitchell, what an honor. I didn't know you knew the graduates." The entire party went silent. Dean Morrison continued, completely oblivious to the tension. "Everyone, this is Dr. Sarah Mitchell, the youngest PhD in our state's history." He turned to address the crowd. "Her $2 million research grant is the reason we have our beautiful new science building." I watched my father's face transform from anger to confusion to dawning horror. Marcus pushed through the crowd, staring at me. "Wait, Sarah? My sister Sarah? Your sister?" Dean Morrison looked delighted. "Good heavens, you must be incredibly proud." My mother couldn't speak. She just stood there, frozen, her champagne glass trembling in her hand. Dean Morrison pulled out his phone, showing photos from the building dedication ceremony. The Mitchell Science Building, named for Dr. Mitchell's extraordinary contribution to cancer research. Other guests started murmuring, pulling out their own phones. "Oh my God, you're the cancer research prodigy," someone said. "I read about you in Forbes." Professor Mark arrived then. I'd invited him specifically for this moment. "Sarah, congratulations to your family." He shook my father's limp hand. "You must be incredibly proud. Your daughter's work is going to save countless lives." Marcus's voice came out quiet and strange. "The building on campus, the one where I took biology and chemistry. That's your name on it?" I nodded. "I walked past it every day," he said, almost to himself. "I had no idea." My mother finally found her voice. "Sarah, we didn't know. You never told us about any of this." "You never asked." My words came out ice cold. "You never called. You erased me." "That's not fair," my father said, trying to recover his composure. "You're the one who left us." "You left me first." I stepped closer, making sure every guest could hear. "The night you told me Marcus's car mattered more than my education. That was the night you chose." The backyard was so quiet I could hear ice cubes settling in glasses. I turned to address the crowd. "Everyone here is celebrating my brother's graduation from State University. I want to tell you something about that university." I paused, letting the moment build. 3 years ago, my parents emptied my entire college fund to buy Marcus a BMW for his 18th birthday. They told me to take out student loans because his future mattered more for the family name. Gasps rippled through the guests. My mother's champagne glass slipped from her hand and shattered on the patio. "So I left," I continued. "I worked 80-hour weeks. I slept in my car. I built a career from nothing. And that building my brother studied in? I funded it. Every brick, every laboratory, every lecture hall. My brother graduated thanks to a building paid for by the daughter my parents threw away." "Sarah, please," my mother was crying now. "We made a mistake. Can we please talk about this privately?" "Privately?" I laughed, and it sounded bitter even to my own ears. "You had 3 years of privacy. You never once reached out." My father tried a different approach. "We're still your parents. We can fix this. Just give us a chance." "No." The word came out firm and final. "You were my parents, past tense. You made your choice when you picked Marcus. Now live with it." I turned to leave, but Marcus followed me. "Sarah, wait. I'm sorry. I really didn't know about the college fund." I stopped and looked at him, really looked at him. He seemed smaller somehow. "You didn't know because you never had to think about anyone but yourself," I said, not unkindly. "That's not entirely your fault. It's how they raised you, but it doesn't change anything. Can I call you sometime? He asked, and he actually sounded genuine. I considered it. Maybe. When you've built something on your own, without their money or their name, then we can talk. I walked away from that party, from that house, from the family that never deserved me. I didn't look back. 6 months later, my research went international. Time magazine featured me in a cover story, The Scientist Who Saved Herself. I told my full story, every painful detail. It went viral. Thousands of people messaged me with their own stories of being the forgotten child. My foundation exploded. We funded hundreds of students now, each one proving their families wrong. My parents sent a letter, 10 pages of apologies, explanations, requests for forgiveness. I read it once, filed it away, and haven't responded. Maybe someday I will, but not today. Marcus called a few months ago from his first real job, one he got without our father's help. "I'm paying my own rent," he said, and I could hear pride in his voice. "Good," I told him. "Call me when you've done it for a year." He did. We had coffee last week. It was awkward but honest. We might rebuild something eventually, or we might not. Either way, I'm okay. I'm mentoring a brilliant young student from my foundation now. She just asked me, "Dr. Mitchell, do you ever regret leaving your family?" I thought about it carefully. I regret that I had to, but I don't regret who I became. On my desk is a photo of my lab team, my chosen family. Professor Mark, Maya, my research assistants who've become my closest friends. These are the people who saw me when I was overlooked by everyone else. Sometimes the family you build is stronger than the one you're born into, and sometimes the best revenge isn't destruction. It's becoming so successful that they can't help but see what they lost. Thanks for listening to the end. If this story resonated with you, don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories about overcoming betrayal and finding your power. Drop a comment and let me know your thoughts. Until next time.